Althea Neale Gibson, August 25, 1927 to September 28, 2003, was an American tennis player and professional golfer, and one of the first black athletes to cross the color line of international tennis. In 1956, she became the first African American to win a Grand Slam title, the French Championships. The following year she won both Wimbledon and the U.S. Nationals, precursor of the U.S. Open, then won both again in 1958 and was voted Female Athlete of the Year by the Associated Press in both years. In all, she won 11 Grand Slam tournaments, 5 singles titles, 5 doubles titles, and 1 mixed doubles title. Gibson was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame and the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame. "She is one of the greatest players who ever lived," said Bob Ryland, a tennis contemporary and former coach of Venus and Serena Williams. Martina, Navratilova, couldn't touch her. "I think she'd beat the Williams sisters." In the early 1960s she also became the first black player to compete on the Women's Professional Golf Tour. At a time when racism and prejudice were widespread in sports and in society, Gibson was often compared to Jackie Robinson. "Her road to success was a challenging one," said Billie Jean King, "but I never saw her back down." To anyone, she was an inspiration, because of what she was able to do at a time when it was enormously difficult to play tennis at all if you were black, said former New York City Mayor David Dinkins. "I am honored to have followed in such great footsteps," wrote Venus Williams. "Her accomplishments set the stage for my success, and through players like myself and Serena and many others to come, her legacy will live on." Gibson was born on August 25, 1927, in the town of Silver, in Clarendon County, South Carolina, to Daniel and Annie Bell Gibson, who worked as sharecroppers on a cotton farm. The Great Depression hit rural Southern farmers sooner than much of the rest of the country, so in 1930 the family moved to Harlem, as part of the Great Migration, where Althea's 3 sisters and brother were born. Their apartment was located on a stretch of 143rd Street, between Lenox Avenue and 7th Avenue, that had been designated a police athletic league play area. During daylight hours it was barricaded so that neighborhood children could play organized sports. Gibson quickly became proficient in paddle tennis, and by 1939, at the age of 12, she was the New York City women's paddle tennis champion. Gibson quit school at the age of 13 and, using the boxing skills taught to her by her father, engaged in a life of what she would later refer to as street fighting, girls basketball, and watching movies. Fearful of her father's violent behavior, after dropping out of school, she spent some time living in a Catholic protective shelter for abused children. In 1940 a group of Gibson's neighbors took up a collection to finance a junior membership and lessons at the Cosmopolitan Tennis Club in the Sugar Hill section of Harlem. At first, Gibson didn't like tennis, a sport she thought was for weak people. As she explained, "I kept wanting to fight the other player every time I started to lose a match." In 1941 she entered, and won, her first tournament, the American Tennis Association, ATA, New York State Championship. She won the ATA National Championship in the girls' division in 1944 and 1945, and after losing in the women's final in 1946, won her first of 10 straight national ATA women's titles in 1947. "I knew that I was an unusual, talented girl, through the grace of God," she wrote. "I didn't need to prove that to myself. I only wanted to prove it to my opponents."